The following is basic lore on the Killswitch story in a server called Jims Zomboid Paradise. Following vanilla Zomboid lore, the Knox event, or Knox infection, happened in Kentucky in 1993 and soon spread outside into other states. In the years following the Knox infection, many settlements began to pop up in Knox County. Some notable settlements to the story is a small radio outpost led by radio operator Jimbo Jenkins of HBR or Hillbilly Radio, and a substantially large town formerly known as Janestown, who was led by a man known as Kentucky Windage. As these settlements began to grow, their activity became more noticeable to survivors outside of Kentucky. Most notably, a substantial faction based out of Clark County Prison in Jeffersonville, Indiana. The Killswitches. The Killswitches' leader, Chris P. Killswitch, was a narcissistic sociopath housed in Clark County Prison in maximum security. Once the outbreak reached Indiana, Chris P. Killswitch took over the prison, held the warden hostage, and used his manipulative abilities to persuade both the prisoners and prison staff to follow him in a cult-like manner. Seeing how Kentucky had begun to grow, the Killswitches began to realize the possibility of them reaching into their territory, so they decided to make themselves known. Chris led a small group of his men into the Hillbilly Radio outpost to send a message. They then took over the outpost and killed everyone, sparing only one member, Joe Joman, to spread the message. The following is a log of the final HBR broadcast that happened during the time of the invasion.
Help! God help us, they surrounded the base!
Come out! Or we'll put a couple more holes in this shit.
I don't know what happened. Joe left the safe house for a loot run, and when he came back... Fuck you, bastards!
Your buddy Joe's here. Don't make us do this the hard way.
Joe! You're with these assholes, why would you...
He didn't have a choice in the matter. Your friends are dead, Jimbo. Up to you whether you want to join them or not.
Fuck you!
Tell you what, Jim. Since you work so hard to supply these fine folks with the news, I'm gonna give it till the count of 10 to change your mind.
Do you know what I've done for this faction?
What?
HBR is nothing without me. And you go and tear it down while siding with these fuckers?
4.
You wanna kill me? You wanna take everything away from me?
7. 8.
Well, you better not miss.
9. 10. Well, I guess I'm Chris Peaky. And this has been HBR Radio. So long, Jimbo.
After these events transpired, it seemed it cascaded into a domino effect that shook Kentucky to its core. Raiders swarmed in from all sides in other states. Fires broke out. Zombies swarmed bases. And there was conflicting reports about what happened next, but all that is known is that Janestown was burnt to the ground. HBR was no more. Kentucky Windage was killed in the outbreak, and very few remained. All of these events transpired into what people called the Fall. After the fall and the remnants of Kentucky, the few survivors scrapped together what they have and tried to rebuild. Arriving back from their honeymoon, a man named Jim and a woman named Janie came back to the horrors of their home being burnt down. They scrapped what they could, and with the help of other survivors, such as Odin Crow and Waterbottle, they saved Janestown and rebuilt it into what is now known as Valhallaville. At the same time, Joe Joman, distraught from losing his best friend and his home, scoured the wasteland in search of anything to bring him back, until finally he found a familiar face. His brother, Chris Joman, nicknamed Sloppy Joe. Sloppy Joe had been holed up at a music festival since the outbreak. Against all odds and with limited supplies, Sloppy Joe had managed to survive all the way up until the fall, where he eventually got swarmed and was forced to leave out into the wasteland for the first time. It was under sheer coincidence that he met up with his brother. Reunited with his long-lost brother who was presumed dead, Joe Joman was rejuvenated with confidence and together they both were the first survivors in Kentucky to cross over the river into Indiana. Unfortunately, Chris P. Killswitch and his gang were watching. Chris was waiting for this moment. He was waiting for Kentucky to finally cross into over the river. Kentucky was in their territory now, and Chris had Kentucky under their thumb. The Killswitches struck back, and struck back hard. They destroyed supply lines, destroyed loot, took trucks, and killed people. They took over the Joman's base and used it as an outpost and to send a message to Kentucky not to cross over the river and to not go into their territory. Eventually the survivors had enough, and led by Jim, they devised a plan to strike back. They let the Killswitches rob a truck that was bugged from the inside. They then used this truck to gather information about their whereabouts to rob them back. Unfortunately, Chris P. Killswitch knew that something was up. He suspected that the Joman were giving information to the enemy, so he took them. He took Sloppy Joe and stuffed him in the back of the truck with some documents that were going to be burned to kill him. Then he took Joe Joman and drug him out into a cabin in the middle of the woods to be slain. Luckily, the truck Sloppy Joe was stuffed into was the very same truck that was bugged by Jim and the other survivors. They triangulated the truck's position and then robbed it, saving Sloppy Joe and recovering documents from inside the truck that would allude them to the Killswitch's true intentions. Inside this vehicle, our survivors found out of a separate faction called the Indiana Remnants, a bigger faction than the Killswitches, who were sent out with a trade agreement to help them. Not much is known about this mysterious faction. However, other pieces of information were found in this truck, such as directions to kill Sloppy Joe, old information about Chris and his prison, Chris's notes on his plan to take over Kentucky, and an encrypted note, which when translated said,
"We destroyed an IR supply escort while scouting. If the IR were to find out about this, it would destroy our trade agreement. Blame it on the Knox County settlements. Stop them from entering further into our territory. We can kill two birds with one stone. Chris P. Killswitch."
But the most important thing found in the back of the truck was a bloody and beaten Sloppy Joe. After being rushed to medical care, Sloppy Joe recalled being taken to a wooded area with Joman. Joman was then taken out of the truck, and Sloppy Joe lost consciousness. One thing was for sure. Jim and survivors had to act fast if they wanted to save Joe. Using this information, Jim triangulated Chris's position by enticing him to talk on the radio. They then took his radio signals and used it to judge his precise location. Now all that was left to do was go meet him in person.